Reed Richards and Sue Storm's presence has been noticeably absent from the Marvel Universe for years. Now, their triumphant return is here. The only question is, did it pay off and was it suitable? Find out here. Hey guys, welcome back to this week's pull, or as Josh would like to say,
what are we reading?
And this week, or at least on this episode, there's not many comics for us to go over, but that means we can get a little bit more in depth with it, which I know I'm looking forward to. Josh, probably not so much. How do you feel?
I'm down. I'm ready.
All right. Well, the first thing we're going to tackle today is The Amazing Spider-Man #3 by Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley. As you guys can see on the picture that we got up, we decided we were going to put up the regular cover and the variant cover that has the Fantastic Four.
You like to always go above and beyond, don't you?
I do. I want everyone to know, hey, if you see this cover out there, it's still The Amazing Spider-Man issue #3.
Hey,
Josh,
Jake.
yeah.
I'm impressed.
Thank you. How did you feel about The Amazing Spider-Man issue #3?
I liked it. I mean, this has been a solid Spider-Man run. Starting with the first issue, it was fantastic. Got all fives from everybody here. And then the second issue was still good. For this one, it's going down a little bit for me in quality, but not saying it's not a good book. It is a good book. It's just not. It doesn't have that star quality that the first one had.
Right. This specific issue is not as exciting or as titillating, I'd say, as issues 1 and 2. But this one seems to be actually setting up a lot of the story. Where issues 1 and 2, I think, were more devoted to setting up where Peter Parker is at his life now. This one's finally starting to go, okay, where's the story going? Because in the last issue, the cliffhanger that we got was like, oh shit, what's happening here? This is kind of addressing it, but the thing is, for me anyway, that spoiler of what happened and why we saw Spider-Man and Peter Parker in the same room together as separate entities is not as big a spoiler in this book as I would have thought, and it's more the reaction to that. What do you think?
I agree. This book is clearly from a setup book. The rest of the books, there was a little bit of conflict here. They kind of pieced out a little bit of conflicts, but there were nothing that kind of goes, okay, this is going to be a story arc right here. This one kind of sets up for this, for this idea of what the actual problem is going to be.
Right. Yeah,
and then setting up that.
In the last issue too, we also got this weird thing at the beginning with an elephant being hunted, and then you get it in this one as well. So you can tell there's also some setup happening at the beginning of the book. But what's great about this book, again, is that there's just the character interactions are really well developed. I think they're really genuine feeling. There are a couple moments of social media or pop culture references that I go, okay, it's gonna date the book here in a year or 2 years. But I think that you can easily look past that. But I think what I really like about this one is that they're setting up kind of a 1990s Hulk dynamic here with Spider-Man. And I'm going to go try hard not to spoil exactly what it is, but it has me very curious how this is going to play out, because this is going to give Peter Parker a very different outlook on life, and it's going to give Spider-Man a very different outlook on life. And I think that those two personalities are going to be butting heads, and I'm actually very excited to see how that plays out.
Yeah, part of me thinks it's going to be it's interesting how it's going to play out. For me, it wasn't a big, huge, exciting reveal. It didn't really feel original. We've seen this same kind of thing happen.
But we've never seen it happen with Spider-Man, and he even
but
he addresses the idea I've had clones, I've had all this other stuff.
This is a little bit different, and so I guess I was just hoping it would be something more exciting. But it's still intriguing.
Right. I think for me the excitement wasn't so. It didn't feel like there was supposed to be a big build-up as to who is this other Spider-Man. That to me, the way this book played out wasn't that's the big reveal. It's more like all the information coming out of it. That's going to be what you're really going to want to sink your teeth into. And the other thing that I really like too is that while Spencer has been taking Spider-Man back to his roots, he's even taken him back to the thing that turned him into Spider-Man in the first place. I really dig that. They call it the genome, the isotope genome accelerator. I'm like, that's cool. I like that he's going so far to go here's who Spider-Man is at his core, that he's even going to bring in the first thing that originally turned him into Spider-Man. So I'm excited about this book. I really am. But this, I will say, if you're judging it issue by issue, is probably the least exciting, but still a good issue.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely not as exciting as the other issues. The ending kind of is not the same kind of way that all the other issues have kind of ended. The issue 1 and issue 2 both end on this note where you're just like, holy shit,
Yeah.
you know. And this one doesn't kind of end with that. It kind of ends with this more like, okay,
I think it does.
intriguing.
Yeah, it might be a better way to put it, but I think it does because it splits up in the panels and pages with great power, and on the next page it's in responsibility, and you've got the duality there of both of those, and I like that. I see what Spencer's going for, and what I like is that there's so many different routes to take. I'm excited to see which one he decides to go down.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree. It's just like it's really intriguing, and it's with the last page. That's what kind of like tells you that the rest of the story where it's leading to. It's intriguing. It's gonna be fun. It's going to be a new outlook and a new way that Spider-Man or Peter Parker are going to be looking at this situation and how they're going to learn, and it's all kinds of cool little stuff like that. But it just for me, it just did not like the other ones. Was like when we got done reading it, we all was just like, what?
Yeah.
Or like, oh shit, you know. And then this one, it was more like, huh, interesting.
Right.
Okay.
So this issue is more just setting up the future
Yeah.
of this series in general. Like this is the first big story arc. The first 2 issues were setting up the chessboard. This one is like, okay, here's where the story's going to go. So let's unveil our new rating system for this week. Josh, how do you feel about issue 3?
I'm going to give it a 3.25 Fantastic Cars.
All right, yes, guys, and with Fantastic Four coming back, we decided we'd go with an old classic for our rating. It's going to be Fantastic Cars. I'm going to go just a bit higher, 3.5 Fantastic Cars for issue 3.
Okay, and Marvel didn't have a whole lot out, so we also are putting in some of our independent titles into this video. Aftershock put out a new book today called Hot Lunch Special, which I am going to let Jake
it's by
say the
Elliot
names.
Rahal and Jorge Fornes.
Yes. Since this is an issue 1, I will kind of brief down a little bit of this. The book deals with this family who obviously was dealing with the mob back in the day, but it's a family who's put together this restaurant and this what would you say? It's like
Food chain and food distribution. Yeah.
But the very beginning of the book, a cop is eating a sandwich that looks like he got from a vending machine or a gas station, and there is a finger in it. Yeah, it looks like he's a patrol officer.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Then it goes to the history, and it's following this little boy, and you're just getting a little bit of rundown of this, of this family, and this generations of the family, and how each of them are positioned. And this book is actually, it's interesting. I thought it would be something a little bit more supernatural. But really, this is actually more of a mob book. It's more of a.
It's kind of like it's like a De Niro, Scorsese.
I'm glad you said that because I feel the same way.
You know, oh shit, what's his name? Oh, fucking from Scarface, dude. What's his name?
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino. Yeah, I couldn't think of the name. Yeah, guys. You know, it feels a little bit like a comic about a movie that they did. You know.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it feels like. I mean, if you like Goodfellas and you like Martin Scorsese mobster movies. Like this is definitely, it has that feel to it, and it's not too over the top really. I think it was actually really. I mean, I keep saying interesting, and I keep saying but really, it's actually a very interesting book.
Yeah, for me, the thing about this book that didn't grab me is that there are no characters for me to attach to as a reader. This is much more about just the story at hand, so they kind of sacrifice their characters because they introduce a lot of characters. There's a lot of characters and there's a lot of names you're not going to remember. There's not a lot of faces to put with these names. The art style doesn't really lend itself to feel like everybody has a very unique look to them either. Mm-hmm. It's a very different, it's not your superhero comic book, you know, it's not that artistic style. No. But this book it's about, like you said, it's about kind of this mobster thing. It's kind of like the fronts that we see, you know, like in Breaking Bad, he had the car wash, and it was a front for money laundering for his meth business. It's kind of what the food business is for this family, and it's been going on since World War II. But yeah, there's a lot thrown at you, not a lot of characters to really attach to, but the story at hand is very interesting, and I will say the way the paneling is laid out, it's very cinematic. It's weird. There there's no movement, of course, in the comic book, but it feels like there's a camera movement, and there feels like there's a very conscious editing decision
Especially
behind.
the transitions from one scene to another scene. It does. You could tell that they paid attention to some movies.
Yeah, and they just know the way your eye is going to flow while watching these panels. And I got to say, this is going to be a hard-hitting book. I can tell by the very end, it's going to be pretty brutal at the same time.
Oh, yeah, and especially when at the end they show a picture of the cover for the next issue. And after seeing the cover, I'm definitely more intrigued to read the second issue.
I definitely want to give this a second issue for sure. So I'm going to go 2.75 Fantastic Cars for Hot Lunch Special number 1.
I'm right there with you, 2.75. Once again, if you like Martin Scorsese films, this book is I would say it feels like Casino, only but with a food chain. It's
or
pretty
it feels
cool.
like the first 10 minutes of Goodfellas or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
All right, guys, and we're going to move on to the big, hard-hitting issue everyone's looking for this week, or at least looking...
Hey, wait a minute. Before we continue, I just want to say one thing. Who the hell's Wyatt?
There's your guys' special code phrase. If you guys come in this week and get a Fantastic Four, you'll get 20% off.
Thank you, Jake. And now it's clobbering time.
Fantastic Four, the issue that everyone is at least probably clicking on this video to check out, because everyone wants to know, is Fantastic Four going to come in, and are they going to be done as well as Spider-Man, Thor, Captain America, Avengers, Iron Man, like all these big titular tentpole characters that Marvel has? They're killing it lately, and they got Dan Slott, the guy who's writing Tony Stark Iron Man, coming to do Fantastic Four.
Wrote Spider-Man for 10 years.
Yep, and I gotta say, this issue did not disappoint me, but it was not what I thought it was going to be.
Same.
Well, I gotta say too, at the very beginning of Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, there's a really nice tribute to Steve Ditko. It's nice to see Marvel giving him his due. But this is an issue that's following Ben and Johnny, and it's weird. I always felt like the roles should be reversed here. Johnny is the one who won't give up on Sue and Reed and Valeria and Franklin being gone, while Ben is coming to terms with this. And if you guys have been reading Marvel 2-in-1, there's definitely some congruency between these two titles right now. But it's about... Most of the book is about how Johnny and Ben are getting along without the Fantastic Four being a thing, and how everyone is remembering the Fantastic Four. And, it's like on the anniversary of their space shuttle launch that gave them their powers in the first place. And it's really a heartfelt story. It's really something that I think is smart of them to get back, because they are the first family of Marvel. It feels like a story about a family.
Yes. And I understand where you're coming from with, you feel like the roles should be reversed, but I kind of like the roles being where they're at with with
No, I do.
Ben and
I do.
Johnny.
I just feel like logistically knowing these characters, I would feel like Ben would be the one who's like, they're not gone. They're not gone, and Johnny being the one who's like, dude, Ben, you just gotta accept it, man. Like,
yeah, I know, but that's one thing I like.
I do too.
It shows you where their limits are. It shows you, when does Johnny actually lose his cool? No pun intended.
Yeah. I gotta say too, there are some really nice moments. There are flashbacks with them as a team and stuff, and I really think the interactions between characters like Johnny and Sue and Reed and Valeria and Franklin and Ben, like all these guys have a great repartee with each other. There's a moment of talking about singing and stuff with Sue, and I thought it was just so heartwarming, because who hasn't had that kind of interaction where it's like you're a little kid, your mom's singing in the front seat while you're in the back, and you're just kind of going, my mom's not a good singer, but I love her,
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So this book isn't what I expected. I expected it was like, okay, hard hitting. We're gonna find Reed, and we're gonna find Sue, and it's much more of a personal tale between Johnny and Ben, and the way they're living their solo lives outside of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, which we've already gotten a little taste of that from the Marvel 2-in-1, which is a great read. If you ever get a chance to pick it up and read it, I would suggest reading it. It doesn't disappoint at all.
No. And I do like that they take some time to interview some of the other people in the Marvel Universe, like Jennifer Walters and Medusa.
People who were substitute members before.
Yeah, and Luke Cage, and see how, how do they feel the world is without Reed and Sue, without the Fantastic Four being a force, They call them the best. They even, in this book, actually refer to them as being the greatest team in their world, right? The greatest superhero team.
Yeah.
And, well, I think you can contest that about the Avengers or whoever. It's just nice that they get that respect.
Yeah. Well, they've been around for a very long time. Which, as a matter of fact, that's the other cool thing about this book, is that in the back you also read it. So it's not like I just knew this off the top of my head, but it's also the anniversary. When this book comes out, it's the anniversary of Fantastic Four #1's release.
Yep.
I think it was like 75 years ago.
No, not 75. It was back in like 1961 or 2.
61.
Yeah. So it's
Do
been
math.
it's been about 50 some years. But anyway, guys, so I will say that I did like this book a lot. It wasn't exactly what I was expecting it to be, but I think that's for the better, because if it was what I was expecting it to be, it probably wouldn't have succeeded. I do like Sarah Pacelli's art in here. I really think her paneling or her pencils are done really well. The coloring really fits with it. My only real problem with it is when you do this in books, when you have left page and right page and the panels are supposed to go
It makes it
across the
hard to
page,
read.
you're not sure if you're supposed to read on to the next page before going lower to the bottom panels, or if you're supposed to go one page and then the next page. And there were a couple times where I was confused as to how the layout was on some of these pages. So that was like my only real frustration with the book, that I just could, when you put like the panels, the way you lay them out, and it feels like they're only fitting to one page and they're not supposed to spread across to the next one. It makes it hard and interrupts my reading a little bit, but that's just how books are laid out, so I can't be too mad about it. And then I do like that there's with any classic Fantastic Four book, there's a tiny little thing with Doom at the end. It's still Dan Slott writing it, but it's got a different artist on it, and it seems to me that they're actually going to be kind of retconning everything we know about Doom in Marvel 2-in-1. It seems, I can't be sure, but it seems like he's kind of up to more of his nefarious ways, and I gotta say, I love the art. It actually reminds me a lot of Thor Loki. There's a Thor and Loki 4-issue thing they put out years ago, and I think Simone Bianchi is the art, and it might be the same artist who did that, but it's beautifully drawn. It definitely tells me that Doom is going to be in the mix in the story at some point, which is going to make it a classic Fantastic Four book again. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Josh?
No. I mean, it's a Fantastic Four. It's great. I don't want to go too much detail because I don't want you guys to not pick up this book because we've told you everything about it. Because it definitely is a book that you should have if you are a collector. I mean, it's a big moment. They've been gone for, 5 years?
About 5 years. And if you guys look, I mean, how many great variant covers there are, and you got to get at least one of these covers up for your collection.
Yeah, the book is a big deal. This is the first Marvel family, and it's what Marvel Comics, your superheroes, Spider-Man, all that would not be would not exist if it wasn't for this team. And the fact that they took it off the shelves for 5 years and now they're bringing it back, that's a big deal. And you got a good writer, you got a good artist on it. And this book, I mean, exactly like what you said. I was expecting, not disappointed with the book, but I was expecting a heavy hitter. For some reason, I was hoping I was going to pick this up and it was going to be my favorite Marvel book.
Yeah.
And it's not my favorite Marvel book, but it's not my least favorite either.
No, not by a long shot.
Yeah,
I think
by a long shot.
It's interesting to me because, of course, everyone knows Fantastic Four kind of saved Marvel. They put Marvel on the map, back when they were first created. And now, we saw Marvel had a lot of stumbling and a lot of, growing pains here lately with the way the comic industry is going. So it's almost like they established all these other characters that have some really good books, and they're like, you know what, we're going to bring the Fantastic Four back. They're going to be like the last linchpin to make sure Marvel is like the big publisher that they used to be again. It's kind of feels like Fantastic Four is here to save Marvel once again.
Yeah. And I actually, after reading this, I have very high hopes in this series. This is not, quite the Amazing Spider-Man #1 where we're all super excited and we're going like 5 stars, all across the board. But this book definitely is promising. After reading it, it is very heartfelt. And it definitely has me wanting to read more,
Absolutely.
Which I've never really been a huge Fantastic Four fan. But I'm still wanting to read this. I'm still wanting to buy it because it's Fantastic Four. You gotta pay. Just pay tribute at least.
Yeah, there's just something about this book that gets me excited about the future.
Exactly.
So with that, guys, I'm gonna go again. Not my favorite book, not my favorite issue 1 Marvel's put out lately, but I think it's a solid book. And of course, with all those variants out there, I think this is actually an absolutely must pick up book. With that, I'm gonna go 3.5 Fantastic Cars.
Man, we're kind of hitting on the same dot. I was going to go 3.5 Fantastic Cars as well.
All right, guys. Well, that is all we've got for you for this episode. Definitely make sure you check out the DC one up. There's a lot of DC out this week, so definitely check that one out, and we will see you guys either there or next week. Thanks for listening.
Peace.